whether you're a boy or a girl. You need those emotional development that and that happens when you receive energy from both your mother and father. This is why it's important to be emotionally healthy before you have children, so you can truly help your child develop emotionally. You have to be emotionally developed first. When you're a single parent, it's it's very difficult. It is possible, but you're never going to do 100%. Never, because to have 100% requires both parents. Yeah, because you receive a certain energy from both parents as you develop, and you need that for your development. And this is why both parents should be emotionally healthy first. But sadly, most cases in this modern day, that's not the situation either. You have parents who are emotionally unhealthy too. Yeah? So to really have 100%, uh, you have to have both parents being emotionally developed first before having children, because that energy is in the egg and the energy is in the sperm. Yeah. So I'm talking from the Lakota perspective. Okay, this is an ancient perspective that the energy is in the egg, in the woman, and the sperm in the man. So they have to be emotionally healthy. I mean, that's the best case. This is why emotional well-being was so important in our society. Yeah. So, um, but once the couple meet, and like I said, the man and the woman are both emotionally healthy. They fall in love, and they make love, and after a time, they have their first child, and the father is there with the mother, and they're, like I said, they're both emotionally healthy. So now they're going to give a really good foundation for this child. As they raise the child is receiving healthy energy from both the mother and the father. It needs that. It needs it from both to develop 100%. So it becomes emotionally developed. That's the best case scenario. The father is around, the mother is around. They are there, both loving and raising that child. And they are both emotionally healthy to begin with. So they're together for a long time. They know how to work through difficulties in their marriage. Every time they work through a difficulty, their love grows stronger for each other because they do this in their own lives. Part of being emotionally developed means learning from your difficulties. That way you don't see them as a bad thing, but you see them as teaching experiences. Time to learn. You do this in your own life. Yeah, you make the best of the situation, learn from it. You release the emotional energy in a healthy, constructive way, and then it becomes a blessing. In time, it becomes a blessing. You transform it. You know that. You've been taught that. You know how to do that. So you're not afraid of difficulty. And difficulty is not a bad thing. You see difficulty as a time to learn. That's how it is for our ancestors. Difficulty was not a bad thing. There was a time for the people to come together and say, let's help this dude or let's help this lady what we can. Yeah? Time to learn. That's good. Learning is always good. Even when it's learning how not to do something, it's still learning. So you do this in your own life, yeah, and you're a partner. You'll attract a person who can do that too, because like attracts like. Yeah, and you do this because it nurtures and maintains peace inside of you, because reality begins within. That's the first concept. Reality begins within, and when you have a peaceful within, you know how to live, and then uh, you enjoy life, and also, like I said, when difficulty happens, you don't see it as a bad thing. You see it as a time to learn, and maybe there's strong emotions, but that's just part of the learning experience. It's part of the process. So you do what you have to do, and you'll be okay. Yeah, that's that's how that is. So when you're this way, you attract somebody this way, and both of you are this way together. When you're married, you are you are when a difficulty comes to your relationship, you both know how to deal with it, and the result is most of the time your love for each other is increased, because all of this is because both of you are emotionally healthy. So it's not about praying to some god or doing certain ceremony. Or it's not about that at all. It's about emotional development. That's the key here. That's what the Western world is missing, is emotional development. So in that sense, see, the children, they receive their energies from the mother and the father as they're developing. That's crucial to the success of the society, because them children are going to grow up too. They're going to become adults. So they have to be emotionally developed. And it comes from both the mother and the father in the beginning. That's why emotional development is so important. And in the Lakota way, we have this system called the Tioshpai. This is a system we got from the buffalo. Yeah? Our belief is that humans and buffalo evolved from the same creature called Pte Oyate. Pte does not mean buffalo. Pte is a sacred being that is human in form, but it's not human. It's not animal either. It's not plant. It's something completely different. And when the first group came on the earth, they transformed into human, and then they were attacked by the wolves. They became food for the wolves, because the wolves were starving. They had nothing to eat, and they entered into a agreement or a contract with Iktomi, the trickster. Iktomi told them that he could bring them food that's so tasty that they'll always want to eat it. Their blood is going to taste so good it's going to drive you crazy, and they're easy to kill, he said. And the wolves were starving, even though they knew Iktomi was a trickster who he will trick you. Yeah, even though they knew that, the wolves were facing extinction, so they made a deal with Iktomi for this food, which is the humans. So when the first Pteh came on the earth, they transformed into humans, and Iktomi led them to a place in the Black Hills called Pheshla. It's a wide open space high up in the mountains in the middle of the Black Hills. It's like a high prairie, yeah, in the middle of the Black Hills. It's way up there. So he led them to that it's a wide open space, and so the wolves were waiting in the trees. And when all the humans got in there, the wolves went and slaughtered as many humans as they could, and they became they went into a frenzy because the human flesh and blood tasted so good. So now the humans were having a very hard time. They ran and ran, and they found a cave to rest, but the wolves were constantly hunting them. So the rest of the Pte Oyate, when they come on the earth, they transform into buffalo. And when the buffalo saw the wolves chasing the humans, they knew that the humans were their relatives. Yeah, that they come from the same creature was this Pte Oyate. So the buffalo, they're called Ptechchaka. The buffalo is Ptechchaka. Tatanka is a buffalo bull. Okay, Tatanka does not mean buffalo; it means buffalo bull. Buffalo in general is Ptechchaka. So the Ptechchaka began to attack the wolves. That freaked out the wolves. The wolves didn't expect that. The wolves thought they had it all. Yeah, so now the buffalo start to kill the wolves off. So here we have this eternal war happening. The wolves are out for human flesh and blood, and the buffalo are out to protect the against the wolves. This is why our animal is the buffalo. It's not the wolf. It's the buffalo. Yeah. So in that story, the leader of the humans was shown a vision on how to, use the buffalo to live, and this requires a buffalo hunt, which is very sad because it's taking of a life. Yeah, so in this vision, he was shown that this is going to be difficult, and it's going to be sad that we have to do something for the buffalo. For every buffalo we take, we have to do something. We have to do a ceremony. It's like a funeral, and you promise to the Buffalo Nation that you will use every part of the animal as possible, and that the buffalo will be used for everybody in the camp. So when a hunter brings down a buffalo, it doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the community because they have a community way of thinking. I'm going to explain that here in just a few seconds. But it's a very sad experience because you're taking a life. So in this vision, this man was shown that you're only supposed to take what you need and you give back of yourself. That means you make a flesh offering from your own flesh. You give back to the earth in thanksgiving for this buffalo. So you don't just go and kill. You got to take something from yourself and sacrifice it. That means a part of your flesh. This is hard. But taking a life is hard too. So it's showing respect to the animal. Yeah, it's showing respect that you're going to use this as much, use every part of the animal as much as possible, and that everybody's going to be fed. And you only take what you need. So you're not supposed to be cutting the head off and putting it on the wall. Do you see what I mean? A lot of people do that. And that's really disrespectful to the animal. You might, when your grandfather dies, why don't you cut his head off and put it on the wall? That way you can see your grandfather every day. Why don't you do that? If you think that's sick, well, that's the same thing when you cut an animal's head off. Or stuff an eagle and put it up on the bookshelf and say, wow, look at that. It's so stupid. It's barbaric. Anyway, getting back to this little sub story here of the buffalo and humans. Um, because of this, we have a special relationship with the Buffalo people, and we believe that what happens to them happens to us, and vice versa, because we evolve from the Teoyate. Yeah. So when the buffalo started to organize on the earth, we were watching that, and it was really interesting. What we saw was that it was an extended family system, and this is the way it works. Your mother and her sisters are all your mothers. The men who are with those women, those are all your fathers. So all the children that come from those unions are your brothers and sisters. Your mother's brothers are your uncles, and their women are your aunts, and their children are your cousins. And all grandpas and grandmas are grandma and grandpa. And all grandchildren are grandchildren. Okay? That's how that works. All right. That's your mother's side. On your father's side, your father and his brothers are all your fathers too. And the women of those men are your other mothers. And the children from those marriages or unions are your other brothers and sisters. Your father's sisters are your aunts, and their men are your uncles, your other uncles, and the children from those unions are your other cousins. And again, all grandpas are, and all grandmas and grandpas are grandmas and grandpas. Okay? To everybody. This is what the buffalo organized into. We saw that and said, hey, let's do that too. And that is how our Tioshbaya concept was born. T means to dwell. Oshbaya is a group. It's a family, but it includes others who are not related by blood, but there's something similar about them. So a Tioshbaya, it's mostly the family, yeah, but there's also others that are coming from someplace else, but they share something in common, some kind of identity thing, yeah, and that's Tioshbaya. That's where we got that from the Buffalo people. So you see in this story that a child has many mothers and many fathers, so that if something happens to the biological parents, that child is still going to receive motherly energy and fatherly energy in its development. This ensures the child will grow up to be an emotionally healthy adult. So it strengthens the community. That's family. Isn't that cool? That ensures that the child receives healthy motherly energy and healthy fatherly energy for its development, for its own development, so it becomes an emotionally developed adult. That's why it's so important. Talking about um, having children and and how it's really it's really a sacred thing. In Lakota, baby is called Wakanyeja, and the word Wakan is part of that word, and this is like um, some people say it means sacred, but really, it's more than that. It's like an energy of life, yeah, life energy. It's mysterious. It's wonderful. It's if you don't understand it, it could be dangerous, and it's something to be mindful about. That's wakan. So it's more than sacred. Okay, okay. So and then to have this word in there, wakanja. This is this shows you the nature of children that they just came, they just arrived. Yeah, when a child is born, something inside that child also arrived from someplace, and this is a very sacred thing. Yeah, this is a very, very, very sacred thing. So, um, now when you trying to explain that, there's a whole another thing. Yeah, that um, where does what am I talking about? Where does this what where does what is this? Where is it coming from? You know, that's a whole nother story. that's that's kind of uh, takes a long time to explain. So, excuse me. But I just want to say that it's a sacred thing. Okay, that I mean it's a very wonderful thing, you know, to have a child, and that this child is coming into this world with some sacred pieces inside of its body. We all have them. But when the child is born, see, these just arrived. It just came here. So it's a big celebration, yeah. When a child is born, it's a huge celebration. The whole community celebrates and welcome that child. But you know, before the child is born, um, the mother uh, is already talking to it, and she's telling stories, talking about the family, and at certain times, the family comes too, and they talk to this unborn child. And so that the child is getting familiar with the voices, the tones of the voices of the family. They sing songs to the child, and so all this energy, the child feels this family energy, and it's already being programmed. Yeah, it's already being programmed um, in a healthy way. So when the child is born, it's really prepared good. Yeah, it's prepared in love, and everybody is celebrating. It's a happy event, and you always see movies where they sun comes up, they hold the baby up to the sun, and that's a little bit over dramatic, because sometimes babies are born at night. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So that's 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 a that's not how it happened. Okay, that's really over dramatic there. That's just a movie director, you know, wanting to romanticize, you know, Lakota people. So you see that in movies. I think it was in that movie. It was a TV series by Steven Spielberg. Was it Steven Spielberg? Yeah, Steven Spielberg. Into the West. There's one scene where you see something like that. That's not really. That really didn't happen. Um, so that's just a romanticization. Yeah, that's all that was. Anywho, so this is Look at all the preparation that's important. Once a woman is starting to show, once she knows that she's pregnant, look at the preparation that already begins. Yeah, that before the child is born, there's lots of things happening, and it's very important that the unborn child, hears the voices of the family, because through those voices, the child is picking up energy too. Because you know how it is when you talk to somebody and you can tell how they are, like like this 27-year-old lady I'm talking about in the beginning. When I would talk to her, she was always like, "Hi, how are you? How is your day?" Like that. And then, and then when her birthday's coming, and I talk to her, she's like, "Hi, how are you? How is your day?" I said, "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing. I'm okay." She said. I said, "You don't sound like yourself." And she said, "I know. What do you mean? I'm okay. Really? I'm happy." She said, I said, "No." I said, "There's something bothering you." So I said, "What's wrong?" "No, there's nothing bothering me." I said, "Yes, there is." I said, "Normally your voice is different." "Explain that," she said. So I told her, I said, "What normally when we have our discussion, you're like, 'Hi, how are you?' And now today you're, 'Hi, how are you?'" Totally different. So what's going on? I said, "What are you thinking about?" And she said, "Well, my birthday's coming. I'm getting old." She said, "For a person my age, that's funnier than hell." Oh, shoot. Anyway, you see what I mean? You can tell how a person is talking. You can tell their energy level. You can tell if something is bothering them or not. Yeah, so babies pick up on this. Babies pick up on, I should say, unborn babies pick up on this. They know something is going on. Yeah. So now about the way the reservation is today. Yeah, the way it is today, and excuse me. Um, I said how 12 and 13-year-old girls are having kids, and by the time they're 16 years old, they have 4 or 5 kids, and by the time they're 30 years old, they're grandmothers. This is no joke. That's what's happening, and they think it's funny. Ah, I'm a 30-year-old grandma. They think it's funny. Yeah, it's when their daughter does the same thing that they do. It's incredible, and I don't mean that in a good way. Yeah, that it's unheard of. Now, in that kind of society, think about the unborn child. Okay, think about that unborn child. Most likely, the teenage girl is still getting drunk during the pregnancy, and she thinks it's funny. "Oh, I'm getting my baby drunk." They think it's funny. While they're drinking beer and smoking cigarettes at the same time that they're pregnant. Yeah. And then, yeah, it's sad. Because think about that unborn child. It's not receiving any love at all. It's already being abused. It's not receiving any love. There's no direct communication to the child. Instead, it's being poisoned with toxins from the alcohol and cigarette smoke. The mother is probably not eating healthy either. So it's you know, it's getting lots of dangerous chemicals from all the junk food she's eating. It's a burden for her. The father, who's probably 14, 13, 14 years old, is this he thinks this is cool that his girlfriend is pregnant. The, they only focus on the pregnancy, but they don't focus on the baby. Do you see what I mean? And the baby is not receiving any nurturing from its family. Nothing. So when it's born, it's not coming in a good way. Maybe some people are happy, which is good because the baby needs all it can get at this point. Because so far it hasn't received anything but junk and toxins and neglect from its own mother. So the baby needs every ounce of love it can get from others, whether it's the grandparents or, you know, other relatives who are happy that the baby is healthy or whatever. And that's a miracle if it's healthy. But they don't appreciate that. So the child has a very unhealthy entrance into the world. No celebration. The teenage mother gets mad when the baby goes shit because it's inconvenient for the mother. The father doesn't want to have anything to do with that. So the baby sits there for hours in a dirty diaper. That affects the baby too. How would you like to sit around in a pile of shit for several hours? And then the baby is being fed pop from the very beginning, orange pop, orange crush. In America, it's called Crush. The brand, it's called Crush, Orange Crush, or Grape Crush, or Strawberry Crush. That's what the baby's drinking instead of milk. It's eating junk food instead of healthy food when it can eat. It's getting addicted already. It's getting addicted to sugar already, sugar and salt, and it's probably going to have diabetes and high blood pressure at a very young age. This is totally the opposite of our ancestors. Yeah, no nurturing. No nurturing. No connection is really established between the parents and the child. And this happens generation after generation after generation. It gets worse. I read things on the online newspapers from back home on the reservation, stories of things that happened, and like this couple. Um, they the mom and dad, they're both overweight, like really overweight. They're both about maybe 175 kilos. It's really big, yeah. and the woman didn't even know she was pregnant for a while because she was so fat. And then they realized she's pregnant, so she started, going to prenatal and all that kind of thing. And of course, her and her husband, they drink all the time. Or her boyfriend, I guess, they're not married. Excuse me. And the after the baby was born, they came back from the hospital, and they decided to put the baby in between them. And they were drinking during the night, and they went to bed, passed out, and they they woke up, and baby was quiet. So they didn't think anything of it, and here the father said, "Where's the baby at?" And the mother, she was like, she's still half out of her mind. And so he looked, and he realized the mother rolled over the baby. She was her sleeping on top of the baby, and so the father pushed the mother off, pushed her hard, so she fell on the floor. And she got up, and she's really mad. What'd you do that for? He said, "You, she slept on top of her." So they were checking her, and she was dead. The mother rolled over in her drunken stupor. She rolled over, passed out on top of the baby, and smothered it. So now she's sitting in prison. So these are the kind of things that happen regularly. So it's really rare to see kids who are healthy on the reservation. They are there. Don't get me wrong, okay? They are there, but it's really rare. And I don't mean to rhyme. They are there, but it's really rare. Yeah. Um, but dude, that was, to me. I thought, geez, how tragic. Yeah, the child's not even a week old, and already, they're burying it, all because the mom got drunk, and the mom rolled over on the baby and smothered it as she was passed out. She didn't even realize. No wonder the baby didn't make any noise. How could she? She was smothering. Yeah, these are the kind of things that happen. The child didn't even stand a chance. I know one lady personally. Um, just one. No, I, that didn't come out right. No, I meant just just one. No, let me start that again. Excuse me. Oh man, I apologize. Why my throat's getting clogged here? Must be the weather. Sometimes that happens to me. Anyway, I know somebody personally. She's dead now. Okay, but I knew her when I still lived in America, and I was probably in my 20s. I think I was 20. Oh, what year? 20. Maybe I was 24 years old. Okay, I think I was 24 years old, and this woman, I know her personally. I'm not related to her or anything, and but I know her, and she got pregnant, and she was 21 years old, and she already had some children. She she had children since she was 16 years old. Okay, and she had three children. They seemed to be okay, but the fourth one she had with a different guy, and She and this other guy, they always got drunk all the time. And uh, the whole pregnancy, she got drunk. And when the baby was born, he was born blind, deaf, and severely fetal alcohol syndrome. Poor thing. Poor, poor, poor thing. Didn't even stand a chance. I don't know if he's still alive or not. Because a lot of times these fetal alcohol syndrome children, the ones who are severe, uh, they don't live too long. So I don't know if this guy is still alive or not. If he is, he's probably in some kind of institution because, like I said, he's blind and he's deaf. He can't see and he can't hear. His head is misshaped. As I saw a photo of this baby, and I about cried. So how could you do this? In my opinion, that woman should have been thrown in prison. It's child abuse. So, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but my God. For those of you that don't know what fetal alcohol syndrome is, this appeared among Indian people first because Indian people and Asians were missing an enzyme that the rest of the human race has. Okay? And because we're missing this enzyme, um, it's very easy for us to become alcoholics. We become alcoholics incredibly fast because we're missing this enzyme in our bodies. Okay? So, the alcohol problem is really severe on reservations, and as a result, it started to appear, and people didn't know what it was because there was no previous um, case of this in medical history. So these children were born, and people just said, oh, they have they're Mongolian babies, that have weird head shapes and stuff like that. Um, some of them have kind of dark skin, um, but they didn't realize this is something different. Nobody could identify it for the longest time, and then finally, I think it was in Minnesota. Minnesota has one of the best children's hospitals in the world, the Mayo Clinic, I think it's called. They have one of the best children's hospitals in the world, and they finally were able to identify what this was. Then they called it fetal alcohol syndrome, and just FAS for short. And then they've discovered there are children who look normal, but they still are damaged on the inside, and they call that fetal alcohol effects, or FAE. Okay, so this appeared first in Indian people because we're missing that enzyme, and we can become alcoholics really fast. Okay, so this fetal alcohol syndrome, when a child has that, there's no repair. There's no repair. It's damaged for the rest of its life. In many cases of fetal alcohol syndrome, you have to teach that child the same thing every day because it's going to forget. You put a note and you say, on everywhere, you tell the child, when you're done washing your hands, turn the water off. But you have to say it again the next day. Every day you have to say the same thing to this child. When the child is going to cross the street, you have to tell every time you have to say, look both ways first. He'll say, okay. But then you get to the next street, it tries to go take off again. It just it doesn't. There's no comprehension whatsoever in fetal alcohol syndrome babies. Some of them are mild, so they can function in society. They can even hold a job, but a simple job, nothing complex. Those are the mild ones. They look normal. Those are FAE. Yeah, but fetal alcohol syndrome itself, there's no repair. There's no cure. How can there be? Because it's all in the brain. It's all fucked up in the brain. Everything in the brain is fucked up, and you can't fix that. That's fetal alcohol syndrome. They don't know logic. They don't know good or evil or bad. They don't know those things. They just do whatever they feel. Yeah. There's a book I always recommend, and now I forget the title. I think it's called The Broken Cord. Cord meaning brain cord. Yeah. That it's spelled CORD. Okay, CORD. Broken cord. Excuse me. And this is a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's written by a guy named Michael Doris, and Michael Doris was part native. I think Anishinaabe. I'm not too sure. And he was one of these, college guys that he got the fatherly urge. He wanted to have a son, and he thought he would adopt because he was getting his upper 30s, and he didn't want to take all that time to go find a woman, to say, hey, I want to have a baby. It's not cool, yeah. So he thought he would go the adoption route, and as a family in South Dakota, a Lakota baby was born, and he was ready for adoption, and the guy was really happy. He flew to, I think he was in Wisconsin, and then he flew to South Dakota to meet this baby. And he said the nurses said there's something wrong with this child. They said we don't know what it is, but we just want you to be aware there's something wrong, and we just don't know. Yeah, we want you to understand that there might be a difficulty here. So are you sure you want this child? And he said, yes, yes, yes. We'll get through it. He said, I can get him to a good doctor, and we'll fix it. Kind of thinking. And so he adopted this boy, and the book tells about the difficulties they had. So you read about the difficulties that he had to teach him the same thing every day, and he realized there's something wrong. He brought him to a ceremony in South Dakota on Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. He brought him to. He had a friend there, and he brought him the boy there, and asked the medicine man to see if he could doctor him. And the medicine man told him he did a ceremony for the boy, and he told him he can't be fixed. You just have to accept that there's always he's going to be this way the rest of his life. It's all in the mind. Yeah, it's fucked up. You can't fix that. So then a little while after that, they realized these doctors in Minnesota identified this. They were finally able to identify this, and because it started to appear in other reservations around America, and they started to see, oh, fuck, this is not good. Yeah, that this then they called it fetal alcohol syndrome. So this book talks about that and what happened during this time. And the boy only lived to be 19 years old. He had a job as a dishwasher at a cafe. He had his own apartment, but he still was kind of irresponsible. Yeah. And one day he just got up uh and he did not wash his face. He just got up and started while he walked outside, didn't even close his door. He didn't even lock his apartment. He just walked into the street and ran in a truck ran over him and he died instantly. It's really a sad movie. It's a movie too. I highly recommend watching this movie because it teaches you, yeah. And get a Kleenex box because you're gonna cry. It's really, really a sad movie, but it's true. Yeah, it's a true movie. So the movie's called Broken Cord, and look at that child. When the child was born, they could smell alcohol, cheap wine, in the as the child was coming out of its mother, they could smell wine coming out of the fluid. The child was born drunk. Incredible. Yeah. So this lady I know, she had a child who was severe FAS. He was blind. He was deaf. Couldn't walk. Poor thing. It just made me feel sad to see that. And all I could say was, how could you do that? You had all the power in the world to have a healthy baby like your first three, but you fucked up on this one. No, everything's going to be okay, she said. Yeah. And then 10 years later, she died of cirrhosis of the liver. That's the res. Look at the total breakdown of our Tioshpai concept. Our Tioshpai concept is nearly non-existent. We are not giving the necessary love to our unborn children, and it's because we don't know what love is. And you can trace it all the way back to the early 1900s on the reservation time, boarding school, Christian brainwashing. It all points to that time period. Now, what I said is that we can't just sit here and blame because we're wasting time. But what we can do is learn. Yeah, learn from that and try to do our best in making a comeback. But to do that, we have to be able to recognize duality, and we have to learn how to transform duality into something that works. So a ceremony is not going to fix it. A sacred song is not going to fix it either. We have to fix it. Yeah? So, just some thoughts for the day, yeah, on the importance of being a healthy mother and a healthy father, and that, Having a child is not a easy. It's not a light task. It's not something that should be looked at so lightly. Yeah, that it is a sacred thing to be a mother and a father. Think about that. Everything I'm saying tonight is based on Lakota star knowledge. These are all ancient concepts. We can bring it back, but we have to want to bring it back. That's the thing.